The sun was setting over Manhattan's skyscrapers, casting a golden glow on the windows of the luxurious penthouse apartment where Olivia Sinclair, a 32-year-old woman with wavy brown hair and piercing green eyes, gazed out at the city that never sleeps. Her fingers absent-mindedly stroked the pearl necklace her late uncle, the real estate magnate Theodore Sinclair, had given her on her last birthday. Silent tears welled in her eyes as she remembered the man who had been her own only family since her parents died in a tragic plane crash when she was just 12 years old. Theodore Sinclair was known for his sharp business acumen and generous heart. He had raised Olivia as if she were his own daughter, providing her with a first-class education and a life of privilege. However, he had also taught her the value of hard work and compassion. Olivia grew into an intelligent, determined, and kind-hearted woman, qualities her uncle had always admired when Theodore suddenly passed away from a heart attack 6 months ago. Olivia found herself alone in the world once again, the haze to a fortune estimated at hundreds of millions of dollars. The days following Theodore's death were a blur of grief meetings with lawyers and the sudden realization that she was now responsible for an empire. Olivia felt the weight of her uncle's legacy on her shoulders, but also a profound loneliness that threatened to consume her. It was in this moment of vulnerability that fate, or perhaps opportunism, brought Ethan Blackwood into her life. Ethan was everything a woman could desire. Tall, broad-shouldered, with wavy black hair and hypnotic blue eyes, his charming smile and magnetic personality captivated Olivia from the very first moment they met at a charity event. He introduced himself as a successful entrepreneur in the tech industry, but what truly caught Olivia's attention was his apparent understanding of her pain and loneliness. Ethan seemed to know exactly what to say and how to act to comfort her, filling the void her uncle's death had left behind. Their romance was intense and fast-paced. Within weeks, they were inseparable. Ethan took her on romantic dinners, surprised her with extravagant gifts, and made her feel loved like never before. Olivia, who had always been cautious when it came to matters of the heart, found herself completely swept up in the overwhelming passion she felt. She believed she had found not just a lover, but a partner, someone who could help her navigate her new reality. As one of the wealthiest women in New York, when Ethan proposed just 3 months after they met, Olivia didn't hesitate. The diamond ring on her finger seemed to seal not only their love, but also the end of her loneliness. The wedding was a luxurious yet intimate ceremony, held at the Sinclair estate in the Hamptons. Olivia radiated happiness in her designer wedding gown, while Ethan, elegant in his tuxedo, smiled with a gleam in his eyes that she interpreted as love, but which concealed something far more sinister. The first few months of marriage felt like a dream. Ethan seemed like the perfect husband, attentive, passionate, and always ready to support her in decisions regarding the family business. However, small changes began to emerge. Ethan started spending more time away from home, citing business meetings and work trips. When he was home, he often received mysterious phone calls, stepping out of the room to speak in private. Olivia tried to push aside the doubts creeping into her mind. She convinced herself she was being paranoid, that the stress of managing the Sinclair empire was clouding her judgment. But a persistent voice in the back of her mind warned her that something wasn't right. It was on a rainy autumn night that Olivia's world, completely shattered, she had returned early from a business trip, eager to surprise Ethan. As she quietly entered the apartment, she heard sounds coming from the master bedroom. Her heart pounded when she recognized Ethan's voice, but then froze when she realized he wasn't alone. With trembling hands, Olivia slowly pushed the bedroom door open, and the sight before her left her in shock. Ethan was in bed with a woman Olivia immediately recognized as Sophia, her personal assistant. The two were so caught up in their passion that they didn't notice Olivia. At first, when they finally saw her, Ethan's face showed no remorse, only irritation at having been caught. Sophia, on the other hand, flashed a malicious smile that made it clear this wasn't a one-time Betrayal, the words that followed felt like knives to Olivia's heart. Ethan coldly and without hesitation revealed that their marriage had been a sham from the start. He and Sophia had planned everything, preying on Olivia when she was most vulnerable, gaining her trust and ultimately seizing control of her fortune. The love Olivia had believed was real had been nothing more than an elaborate performance. Devastated and humiliated, Olivia fled the apartment, tears blurring her vision as she ran to the elevator. The rain poured mercilessly as she stepped onto the street, mixing with her tears. Without thinking, she got into her luxury car and sped through the wet streets of New York, her heart shattered and her mind in turmoil. It was in this state of profound anguish that fate intervened in Olivia's life once again. On a sharp curve, her car skidded on the slick pavement. She tried to regain control, but it was too late. The vehicle spun violently before crashing into a tree at the roadside. The impact was brutal, leaving Olivia unconscious, trapped in the wreckage of what had once been a symbol of her wealth but had now become a deadly prison by the time paramedics managed to pull her from the twisted metal. Olivia was on the brink of death. Her journey was only beginning, a journey that would take her from the heights of luxury to the depths of despair before she could rise again. Transformed by adversity and driven by an unrelenting desire for justice, the monotonous rhythmic sound of monitoring machines echoed through the sterile hallways of New York Presbyterian Hospital. In the intensive care unit, Olivia Sinclair lay unconscious, her fragile body connected to a myriad of tubes and wires. Doctors moved around her with grave expressions, exchanging worried glances as they examined her test results. The diagnosis was grim, severe head trauma, multiple fractures, and most concerning of all, signs of extensive brain damage. The medical team braced for a long battle, uncertain if their patient would ever wake from the deep coma she had fallen into. While Olivia silently fought for her life, the outside world continued to spin, oblivious to the personal tragedy unfolding within the hospital walls in the luxurious penthouse she once called home. Ethan Blackwood and Sophia Martinez celebrated the success of their nefarious plan. Champagne flowed freely as they toasted their cunning and Olivia's gullibility. Ethan, a cold smile on his lips, was already making moves on the financial chessboard, discreetly transferring large sums of money to offshore accounts. Sophia, meanwhile, combed through Olivia's personal files, searching for any information that could further solidify their control over the Sinclair empire. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. News of Olivia's accident had been carefully suppressed by Ethan's influence and wealth. To the outside world, Olivia Sinclair was away on an extended business trip, unreachable due to the delicate nature of the transactions she was supposedly handling. Ethan played the role of a concerned husband to perfection, making occasional appearances at the hospital to maintain appearances, always careful not to reveal any sign of his true nature to the doctors and nurses caring for Olivia. It was during one of these performative visits that fate once again intervened in Olivia's life, as Ethan spoke with the doctors in the hallway, coldly discussing the possibility of pulling the plug. If there was no improvement, something extraordinary happened. Inside Olivia's room, her fingers twitched slightly, an almost imperceptible movement, but one that did not go unnoticed by the attending nurse in the days that followed. Other signs of consciousness began to emerge, a flutter of her eyelids, a faint squeeze of a hand that held hers. The medical team remained cautiously optimistic, but Ethan received the news with a mix of frustration and concern. As Olivia slowly emerged from the depths of her coma, it became clear that the accident had left deep scars. When she finally opened her eyes weeks later, her gaze was empty, devoid of the brightness and vitality that once defined her. After a series of tests, the doctors came to an alarming conclusion. Olivia suffered from severe retrograde amnesia. Her memories, her identity, her entire life before the accident had been wiped away, leaving only a confusing and terrifying Void Ethan saw this as a golden opportunity with an Oscar-worthy performance he introduced himself to Olivia as her devoted and loving husband, weaving